My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Guitarist Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.guitarist.com. And our special guest tonight is guitarist Greg Golden from the Greg Golden Band. And Greg, you're being interviewed for our Remembering Ronnie Montrose special. So thanks for being a part of this. And part of the reason you're being interviewed for this tonight is last week you played at the annual Ronnie Montrose Remembered concert. And I'd like to first know, how did you get invited to take part in the event?
I was honored to be invited to the event by Keith St. John, and I played the event last year.
Oh, cool!
Frank Hannon produces and records all my music, and he's one of my best friends. And
oh, wow!
He went last year. We went together, and then oddly enough, Keith and I did 3 or 4 shows last year. He sings in my band as well.
Oh, cool!
It's a side project for him, and so I was honored to do some songs with all those guys this year. Was cool. It was a great event, packed, and just honored to do it. Honored to
be part of it. Now, I saw a great clip on YouTube of you guys performing 20 Flight Rock, which is one of my all-time favorite Montrose tunes. And the interesting thing, if you know a little bit about the history of the song, is it was originally an Eddie Cochran tune, and I actually went on YouTube and checked out the original version. It's much more of a rockabilly tune, the original version, but Ronnie really rocked it up and made it his own. And I believe the original singer on the Montrose version was Bob James, and that's always been one of my favorite tunes. So talk a little bit about getting a chance to perform that the other night.
Well, it's oddly enough, I played a lot of Montrose songs because I've been in bands with guys that were in Montrose.
Wow.
One version of other, and so Keith got a hold of me about 2 weeks ago and said he wanted me to learn that song, and I had heard it before, but I never sat down and actually learned it, and I really liked it as well. It's a neat vibe, and Keith sings that extremely well.
Yeah, and the cool thing to me always about that track was the fact that when a lot of people hear the name Ronnie Montrose, they automatically think of those first 2 Montrose albums, naturally, especially the first one, going all the way back
like
to 1970.
Rock Candy, Bad Motor Scooter.
Yeah, with Sammy Hagar, of course, and I love the fact that that's a tune, more of a better known tunes after Sammy left, and I just dig the fact that Ronnie was still kind of able to have a career. And see, that's why I started interviewing people about people that either were influenced by Ronnie or played with him, because I myself, shortly after Ronnie died, I realized there was much more to the Montrose musical legacy than just those first 2 albums.
Right, and I think that was on the 3rd album, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was called, I believe, Warner Brothers Presents Montrose or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a different take with Ronnie too. So
please.
I own Bazaar Guitar in Reno, Nevada.
Okay.
And my drum manager and a guy that I played with most of my life is named Chuck Ruff. He was the drummer for Edgar Winter that did Frankenstein.
Oh, wow.
And of course, Ronnie was the guitar player in Edgar Winter during that time.
Yeah.
So Chuck, and at one point in time, Ronnie lived in Reno. But anyway, so when they only came out at night, I believe it was 73. Ronnie was hugely famous, and he used to buy a lot of amplifiers, a lot of guitars and stuff, and I had the guitar shop, which I opened in 74.
Wow.
And Ronnie consigned and bought and sold a lot of instruments through me, and was always just the nicest guy. I have an unusual story, for instance. He used to take these Fender amplifiers for guys that are guitar players, and back in the day, you have Princeton Reverb, which is with a 10-inch speaker, and then you had a deluxe reverb with a 12.
Wow.
And he would take those and have the repairman from Prune Music in Mill Valley would do like a hop-up on those things. He later became the owner of Mesa Boogie, which was, I think Randy Smith?
Okay.
Anyway, but Ronnie used to get those amplifiers hopped up, and he would keep those for 2 or 3 months, and then he'd move on to something else a little more hot or whatever, and I'd sell those for him, and I sold a lot of the amps for him. But remember one time he brought an amp in, and he said that, the minimum he would take for it is $300 or something, and I sold it immediately for $500. I said, I sold this thing for $500. I don't feel I should only give you $300. I feel I should give you $400. He wouldn't take a dime more than what he consigned it at. He's just an honorable person. And
wow.
Great guitar player, and I always loved his music, and I loved him as a man too. He was very nice to me. Nice to everyone. Now
that's cool to hear, because that's the first time I've actually interviewed somebody who had kind of a different perspective. I mean, a lot of people knew Ronnie Montrose, played with him, or influenced him. I also interviewed another guy. I don't know if you maybe have crossed paths with him. His name was Gene Baker. He's another guitar maker, and he was telling me that he made a couple of guitars too for Ronnie.
Sure, I remember Baker Guitars. I remember hearing about him. I never met him or anything.
Yeah. And now,
But,
let me ask you, Greg. So through that capacity of selling, selling musical instruments and that to Ronnie, did you ever get a chance to like even at the guitar shop just jam with him or anything?
yeah, we kind of picked through some stuff, absolutely, and I was always in awe when he came in more than trying to jam with him or anything. But his, my drummer was his. Basically, his drummer in the famous bands and stuff, and so. But Ronnie did, sold a lot of guitars for me and everything else, and it was really cool, and I was honored. And I've always played his music, and I think in our current, we probably have 10 covers that we do. We don't do necessarily all that many covers at one time because we're mostly doing originals at this point. But I know about 10 covers and stuff, and then of course Keith. We have 4 shows we're doing with Keith already on the books for this next year, so we always bang through the Montrose tunes too,
Yeah, Keith, he's a very talented guy, and he has another band he's in, Burning Rain. They're getting to release, ready to release. I think it's their 4th album overall, and
Brad Lang and Doug Aldrich. I've done some shows and stuff with Brad too. In fact, Brad was the one that was playing bass the night we did the 20 Flight Rock as well.
Yeah, I seen a clip of you guys, and I had a chance to talk to Brad about that last week. He did a great interview with me, but and see, that's what people are discovering is there's more to a Ronnie Montrose legacy than just those first 2 albums. What happened here was shortly after Ronnie passed, there was like a concert put on right away where they had Derek St. James, and they had Sammy and Bill Church and Joe Satriani. They put up together a great tribute concert. That may have been where Keith got the idea to do his annual event. But in any event, I got a DVD to kind of review that they put out to support that thing. And I kind of realized after just watching the DVD, there's so much more to this Montrose guy than just those first 2 albums. I kind of researched and got into some of his music, later on in his career. And a lot of the guys have been telling me, Ronnie would have had a bigger career maybe. He had a pretty successful career, but he might have been a little bigger if he had kind of stuck to the kind of the direction of those first 2 albums. But he was a guy that kind of liked to do it his own way, and whatever his mood was, like he did instrumental music, he did rock music. He was a very experimental guy, but kind of tried to doing various types of music throughout the years.
Yes, for sure. I played on the song too at that Ronnie Montrose Remembered concert, which was The Connection. I have not played that song before. That was fun too.
Oh yeah, Connection. For anybody who doesn't know, interesting thing about that's a song off Paper Money, the second Montrose album, originally a Rolling Stones tune. And it's interesting because if you go and listen to the original Stones version, it sounds nothing like the Montrose version. Almost sounds like kind of like a ballady type of a song, but again, Ronnie made the song all his own, and that's what a great musician is able to do.
Yeah, no kidding. It was his interpretation of so many different things,
Yeah, and even I don't know if you know this, Greg. There's also another great cover song he does on the very first Montrose album. Any idea what that would be?
Let me think. I'd have to think about that. Let me think for a second. A cover on the first record. Let's see. Not offhand.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, and you might be surprised because until recently when they reissued those first 2 albums, and I was reading the credits, I had no idea about this myself, but the song Good Rockin' Tonight was originally an Elvis Presley tune, and again, oddly enough, if you go listen to the Elvis version, it sounds nothing like the Montrose. It's also more of a rockabilly tune originally, but I was kind of interested to learn that little tidbit myself.
All right, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I played that song a bunch of times too. That's one of the songs that I do know.
Yeah. Well, and so let me ask you now. You have your own career going today, with the Great Golden Band. But do you still have the guitar shop? You still sell the guitars to other musicians as well?
I do.
Oh, that's great. So you kind of have
45 years of business. We have a destination. Billy Gibbons was at our store last week. I've been honored to have many amazing musicians over the years come through the store and still play out. We try to do, like, we're opening up for Jakey Lee in February. We're for the Puddle Night in Reno, and Keith's doing some shows with us this year. So yeah, we're doing a lot. We'll have a new album or a couple albums come out this year. I've been working on, so I'm very honored. Frank Hannon from Tesla has been, just a cornerstone in our whole, camp in terms of the band. He's one of my best friends in the world. He's like a brother to me, and it just goes overboard with helping us with the production and the recording and everything else. So
that's great.
I have a lot of friends in the business.
That's great to hear because Frank's a very talented guy in his own right. I mean, who isn't a Tesla fan? They're getting ready to release a great new album. I think comes out March 8th. Tesla's getting ready. They're always touring and doing something. And they're one of those bands that just oozes talent. And so, and then I know probably reason Frank played the Ronnie Montrose Remembered concerts. A lot of people may or may not realize that Ronnie was actually the one. I believe he even produced a demo for the song Little Susie. He's the one that brought that song to the band.
He produced those guys, and they knew him well. And I didn't know that till a couple years ago. And Frank told me how close he was with Ronnie.
Yeah. It's just, and even going back to the Edgar Winter stuff, amazingly, I had no idea until after Ronnie passed that he was the one that played on that album. I had no idea that he played on that song Free Ride. That's another one, much like 20 Flight Rock, that I've always loved that song Free Ride. And even, almost 40 years later, that's one of those great classic rock tunes that you never get tired of hearing. I mean, that riff, and once I learned that's Ronnie Montrose, I said, you know what? Yeah, I could see that.
No doubt. I went to so many concerts because Chuck was one of my best friends growing up. He was my drum shop manager.
Yeah.
And I went to many concerts. Edgar Winter concerts. I probably went to, I'm going to say 50 over the years. And it's just amazing all the different tunes. I learned so many of those kind of tunes. And I'll tell you, Frank playing Frankenstein Frank Hannon playing Frankenstein is unbelievable. That guy has so much, just insight in terms of how it could be played and the effects and things. It was amazing. That was a great show.
Yeah.
Keith put on. It really was. It was a great show.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you too. Somebody that knew Ronnie, what do you think he would think of this annual event that has come to be since he's passed? Do you think that he'd be surprised that many people would want to show up to listen to his music being played by other artists?
I think he would just look at it. He would be so honored. I got to spend about an hour and a half with Lisa Montrose.
Wow.
And I talked to her. She's our friend.
Yeah.
My wife and I both friend, and what a nice lady. And she was just honored, and they're humble people. And Ronnie was just such a good dude, and everybody liked him.
Yeah, that's what I hear. And let me ask you, somebody that personally knew Ronnie. I mean, to kind of get sad for a little bit here. How surprised were you when you learned of his passing, and kind of also in terms of the way he passed away?
Well, anytime you have cancer, you never know how that's going to turn out.
Yeah.
And I'm older myself, and I've just seen so many of my friends and family pass over the years.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but nothing hardly surprises me anymore.
Yeah.
And, but I was shocked, just like the rest of the world. But I think it's really great that Keith takes the time, because I know that there's a great deal of planning that goes into putting on those events. When you're dealing with like 40 or 45 musicians, and with the venue and the sound and the lights and everything, it's just, oh my goodness, there's a lot to think about. But and it was a completely packed show. Yeah,
and what I think's beautiful about it is the fact that much like you, Greg, Keith is a guy that actually knew Ronnie. He played with him for the last several years of his life.
12 years. 13 years.
What's kind of sad is, like, Keith was sharing with me that they wrote a lot of stuff together. They went into the studio and recorded a lot of stuff, and it's never really officially seen the light of day. And he was talking to me that he's kind of working on seeing if maybe that some of that stuff can eventually come out, just for no other reason, just for the sake of the fans to hear it.
Sure.
And that'd be a great, cool thing, because can you imagine, working with somebody for 12 years and you go on and you write, and for one reason or another it doesn't officially never see the light of day? That'd be a pretty sad thing.
Yeah,
but
it's sad when things are here there in the works and the ball gets dropped, or whatever, for one reason or another.
Yeah. Now on that note, I got to ask you: have you had a chance to hear that 10 by 10 album, which is of course was put together by Ricky Phillips and Eric Singer, I guess, after Ronnie's passing, and they had to go.
I've heard a couple cuts on that. Yes.
Yeah, and that's pretty unique because I've actually had a chance to hear the whole CD from start to finish, and what I found very interesting is oftentimes when you have an album where there's like a different singer on every track, it doesn't really sound too cohesive. But I tell you, the fact that you got 10 different singers, it sounds more like a Montrose album than you can imagine. I mean, the fact that you have 10 different singers doesn't really seem to matter. Just listening it from start to finish sounds like a very cohesive album. That's what really amazed me the most about it.
Yeah, his music, you can kind of pick it out, even though it's different genres of music and different singers and stuff. You can still, the commonality is Ronnie. You can hear it,
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting that that he's played with so many great musicians over the years that if you look on any of those guys that played the event the other night, so many of those guys that played with him have gone on to have their very own successful career in the music business.
Correct, absolutely true.
I mean, perfect example is James Kodak. He played on I guess an album he put out like in 1987 called Mean or something, and it had Johnny Edwards as a singer. And James went on to join Warrant briefly. He went on to be the drummer for Scorpions for several years. And I know like Chuck Wright, he briefly played. He's been Quiet Right for several years, and other guys have gone on to have very amazing careers.
Sure. I mean, look at Sammy Hagar.
Oh yeah. And I was interested because I'm just as big of a Sammy Hagar fan as anybody, and I was interested in reading his book because you hear certain things over the years, even just as a fan. And Sammy in his book was saying, him and Ronnie, they really didn't have a major beef. They didn't really ever have a major falling out, except for the fact that pretty much since the band was named Montrose, Ronnie kind of had the attitude that nobody in the band should be bigger than him or should have a bigger profile. And once he kind of saw Sammy was kind of getting just as popular, that's when he decided to change singers in that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sad because, it's just like when you're in a band, it's sort of like being in a marriage, but you got, instead of married to one person, you're married to 4 or 5, however many is in the band, and then you have egos involved, which is even more so, and that's one of the reasons why bands break up. That if everybody's on the same page, they can make it work usually,
Yeah, now let me ask you, Greg, the concert you played last week, the Ronnie Montrose Remembered concert, how much, because looking at the videos, it looks like it's like a great all-night rock and roll jam session. You got all these great musicians getting up there and playing together. But how much rehearsal goes into an event like that?
Well, not so much rehearsal. I was down there all week, so I got the privy of coming down Wednesday and Thursday and rehearsing songs that I didn't even play that night, just so that the rhythm guys could have somebody to play against. Because there were certain guys that didn't fly in until Friday, but the rhythm section was there, so I went down with Keith and got to play some tunes, quite a few tunes, Wednesday and Thursday.
Oh, cool! And the interesting thing is, I got to share with you here, Greg. Until I started, conducting these interviews and researching people who are playing the event and that, I'd also never heard of you or the Greg Golden Band. But I'm glad that I kind of snuck up and learned about your guys' band because, for example, in preparation for the interview today, I got on YouTube and I came across a cool version that you guys do of the old Rainbow song, "Man on the Silver Mountain." And I just thought, man, that's a great cover. Talk a little bit about that. How you guys decided to cover that?
We came out with the first record, and so we were doing a record, and we come out with an EP shortly thereafter, and we had enough to do 9 songs, and we just kind of put it together. I know a lot of covers and stuff. That's the only song that I ever paid for rights and
wow.
on a record and put that out. And so, it was fun. We enjoyed doing that. As far as rehearsing for the shows, most guys will go through, like, for instance, last year, like the pretty thing, last year, everybody was tuned to half step flat. This year, Keith wanted, and everybody was there, wanted to keep it regular straight 8/4/40. So you just go through, and it was kind of funny because the 20 Flight Rock was recorded in the key of E on the album, but the live version that I saw, and I researched it because I wanted to get the parts right, and I watched Keith doing it with Ronnie, and they did it in G.
Wow.
So then, it's the other way around. It was on the album, it was in G, and then live they did it in E. And so I asked Keith, he says, "Oh no, we want to do that in E." So I just got the record down and just played along with that and mastered the parts. And so I think it's kind of like at the level of the guys that are there for most of them, rehearsal is not so much necessary. Because you kind of do your own homework and come in prepared.
Yeah, and again, I dig the fact that it's put together by a guy like Keith St. John that actually knew Ronnie and played with him. Because, even talking to him, I'm sure you can relate to this as somebody that knew Ronnie. I would much rather have an event like this put together by somebody that actually knew Ronnie and played with him as opposed to a guy who, in a suit at a record label just looking to cash in on Ronnie's,
absolutely.
memory.
People don't realize, they think of Ronnie Montrose and Sammy Hagar being the only singer. Bob James sang some stuff, but in reality, Keith probably did 5 times as many shows
as any of those guys. Yeah, and
he was with them almost 13 years.
Yeah, and it's amazing because again, as I'm sure you can relate to somebody that actually knew Ronnie. When you talk to Keith, you could hear his love for Ronnie. But again, even though he played with the guy, he's not looking to cash in on this. If you make a little something, but you could tell he's doing it for the love of Ronnie. And I think that's what makes this such an authentic event.
It was a great event. The thing that was amazing is when Keith sang the song Connection. See, I wasn't familiar with Connection. It was another song that I had to learn. And and Keith sang that live, and I got to tell you, his vocals on that night were just absolutely outstanding, amazing. He sang the whole night. He sang great, but that song, he just nailed it. It was just really incredible. Well,
Keith St. John over the last several years, he's starting to get quite a following of his own. I mean, he's a very talented guy in his own right. I mean, I've been reading stuff on his Facebook page where he's got an event showing up where he's going to do this great Led Zeppelin tribute where he's got guys like Doug Aldridge and some other players coming in to play with him. I mean, the fact that a guy can do Zeppelin and do his own original thing, he played with Ronnie Montrose. I mean, he's one of these cats that can really do it all.
Absolutely. We're playing March the 7th in Reno, March the 8th in Roseville with Keith. And then we're playing June the 8th in Reno and June the 9th in Roseville again with Keith. And we've got some other shows. We should have probably 8 or 10 shows this year.
Now, when you say you're playing with him, he's actually going to be singing for your band?
Yeah, we have another guy named Lowell Hackney that sings with us as well.
Okay.
But we do long shows. Like we're in Roseville, we'll play from 9 until 1, and we have a packed house. We have places we play, and we do really well. But Keith is our sort of our most famous singer, you want to call it that.
Yeah, definitely.
And he just delivers, and we do a lot of covers. I've got quite a few originals too. We do a good variety of both.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because Keith's definitely got his own vibe going. He's not trying to clone anybody, but I could see Ronnie picking a guy like that to work with because he also has a little of that same energy that Sammy Hagar had, back in the, even still has.
Keith's got an amazing stage performance. There's just the presence of, and the thing about Keith that's amazing is for instance, we played a show at the Roseville Opera House last year, and packed show, probably 600 plus, and when he wasn't singing, he was out in the crowd, shaking hands, hugging the gals, bumping fists. He's just a very personable guy, and I have the highest respect for him.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was looking at some of these clips on YouTube from a concert last week that people are already posting, and there's another group of guys up there playing the song Free Ride, and there's this point in the middle of the song where Keith is you see him coming out at the side of the stage, he just kind of checking the guys out playing and kind of joins in. I thought, man, that's how rock and roll is that?
I know, huh? Yeah, the guys who were playing the Free Ride, I believe, was
Andrew Freeman.
Great White.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Robbie Love.
Well, and then I seen George Lynch played the event. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, George and Frank were playing. They played right before I went on to play 20 Flight Rock too.
Wow, and it's interesting because Keith was sharing me. I don't know if this is one of the years you played too, but a couple years back he was sharing with me the fact that at one of the Ronnie Montrose Remembered shows a few years back that he'd actually managed to get a hold of Bob James, who we were talking about. He's a singer on the 20 Flight Rock song, and he's kind of fallen off the radar. He doesn't have a Facebook page. Nobody really heard anything since he's really left Montrose. He didn't do that much, and nobody really knew how to get a hold of him. And one of these years, Keith was able to actually get a hold of the guy. He showed up and played that very song at the event that year, and I think you can even look it up on YouTube and you'll find it. And man, it's just amazing that the original singer, nobody's heard from the guy all these years. He shows up to do this, and from what Keith was telling me, they got just a huge reaction.
How did it sound? Pretty close to the original?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. Especially some guy that's, kind of been in hiding for, 20 or 30 years. You haven't heard nothing from him. fact that he can still get up there and get that kind of response just is amazing, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And so now let's talk a little bit about your Grey Golden band, which you talked a little bit about. But now you said you've got one album and you're working on a new one. Can people actually, if they want to go online and order like a physical CD, do that, or is it just available digitally, or what?
We you can always go to Bizarre Guitar Reno. We have a huge Facebook presence. I think we have 150,000 likes on that page, and so it's pretty good. And we have the albums for sale there. It's on Spotify.
Oh.
You can go to Red Hawk Records and buy it from there. And we have an EP too. So we had a CD last year, or 2015 actually, an EP in 2016, and we're going to have another record, another EP come out this summer. And we'll be playing some variety shows from, Reno and Sacramento are kind of our stomping grounds. We don't overplay. We try to play, every 6 weeks or something in Reno, and same in Sac.
And so getting to go to do an event like this at the Ronnie Montrose Remembered event, that's a pretty big thing, kind of getting out of your local area, huh?
Yeah, it's fun. Frank Hannon came and stayed with us and stuff, so we were hanging out and going to the show together and stuff, and playing the show. It was fun to be invited to that and come down and it's neat. It gives you another venue to conquer, so to speak, and in a different area and stuff. So it was fun. I had a lot of friends from Sacramento. A lot of people from Reno came up too to see us play.
Now is that how you know Frank was from the music scene up there in the Sacramento area? And that.
Well, Frank. Okay, so my partner in my music store in 1980, in the early 80s, had a place called the Grand Ballroom, and Frank came up with the band called City Kids. So it was the pre-Tesla.
Yeah.
And so when he first came in the store, was 15.
Oh, wow.
And so I've known Frank and Brian Reed and all the guys since pretty much since 83. I think that's when they first came up. And then Frank has invited me. I just played with Frank 3 weeks ago in Folsom at a venue, and so he's always honored me by asking me to sit in with him, and so I played some shows. Even in Long Beach, we did some stuff, and so Frank does all my recording and producing, so we're in contact, pretty much daily.
Well, and so what's that like to, you've known this guy since he was 15 years old, since before he was even who he is today, so to speak, and kind of see him kind of rise up like that, and he's been buying guitars for me all these years, and that's got to be pretty cool feeling, to see somebody rise up.
I actually have a case of his guitars and photos and stuff in my vault. I have a museum at Bizarre Guitar too. It's a pretty big store and pretty well known for the guys that are, like most of the guys that were backstage. Doug Aldrich, a lot of guys knew me from many times, like when David Coverdale was recording his album, Rudy Sarzo, Doug Aldrich, and Tommy Aldrich came up and used to hang out at the store a lot and come in and so forth. And so, anyway, we've been honored to have many guys come through. But Frank Hannon is such a great guy, man. I'm proud to call him probably my best friend in the whole world. He's just an awesome guy.
Yeah, and he's all around talented guy. I mean, so much to the point that not only does he do a thing in Tesla, but he's put out a couple pretty good solo albums. He can sing, he can write, he can kind of do it all, He
can play keyboards, he can play any instrument, and the person I look up to, probably number one for guitar playing, there's always these greats like Stevie Vai and and Billy Gibbons and so forth. It's Frank, because Frank, I've been around him enough, and he's helped me tremendously, just with so many different things, but he is super unbelievably talented. I've never met an individual that can hear a song and think about it for a couple minutes and lay it down without having him play it back a couple times. It's just like really a knack. It's unbelievable. Frank has that gift.
And that must come in handy when you got a guy like that producing your own music, that you kind of
comes in way handy.
Yeah, and what's it been now? Did you know the original guitar player that he played with, Tommy Skioch? Did you ever cross?
I do. Tommy used to come in my store at the same time they came to Reno, and he used to buy. He probably bought 20 Les Pauls from me over a period of 10 years or so.
Yeah. Wow. But Frank Hannon. A good example of what you're talking about is, I used to be a fan of a lot of those shredder guitar guys, like especially back in the 80s. But the thing is, to put out a like all instrumental music album, you got to have where you are like a Steve Vai or a Joe Satriani, where each song kind of sounds like a song but stands on its own. And then you got these guys that they put out an album sounds nothing like an angry guitar, Angry Bees or something, and or all 10 tracks sound the same.
Not that guy. I've never been a fan of that kind of stuff. I can appreciate.
There's a place for it. Yeah.
It's kind of like doing if you're gonna go to a ballet, you're not gonna see a guy do push-ups and setups, 50 a minute for 20 minutes. You're gonna see a guy do a creativity. He's gonna take what the song is, and he's gonna give it to you in bits and pieces, and there's highs and lows.
Yeah.
It's just not shredding constantly. It's slowing it down, tones and so forth. But everybody's got their own style. Everybody, some people like that sort of thing, and other guys like other things different. But Frank is the guy that can play so tasty and so clean and so many different varieties. From Peter Frampton to he also played at the Randy Rhoads Remembered that Saturday night, and he sang Ozzy and played Randy Rhoads stuff amazingly.
Wow! I didn't know that. And
he also played in the Bonzo Bash, and he did a version of Heartbreaker that was phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and Brian Tichy, the drummer, used to be in the Dead Daisies, and
that's who he played with at that concert.
But Brian, a very talented guy in his own right, because he became famous primarily as a drummer, but he went on to do some other stuff where he actually, from what he told me, he started out as a guitar player, but the drums kind of became his thing. But he can play guitar, he can sing, lead, very much like Frank Hannon. And getting back to Frank Hannon for a minute, another good example of what you're talking about, Greg, is if you listen to the Tesla hit song, Love Song, while he's playing that guitar solo, it's almost like he's talking to you.
Oh, I know. And see that? So I know a lot about that. He has, like, actually on my album, there's some acoustic guitar work that I've done on there, and I played that very same guitar, which is a Gibson Dove.
Oh, wow.
And so you realize this February, which is this month, I don't know the exact date, I think it's the 15th, it'll be exactly 30 years that Love Song was released.
Wow.
30 years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing to think that they're still doing it, they're still putting out new music, because there are groups that have kind of got the attitude, the music business being what it is, we're just going to live on our catalog of music. And like I said, they're getting ready to release a new album of nothing but new material. And that's why I respect bands like that they continue to give their fans new music,
This last week, I know that Jeff Keith went over to Frank's house, and they were working feverishly in Frank's studio for new songs, old songs, changing keys, working on all kinds of stuff. He's always working on getting better. And I've been privy to I've gone to how many Tesla concerts, how many, I don't know, probably 50 or something. I've seen them play, and they always deliver, like Monsters of Rock and stuff. The Monsters of Rock was kind of built around the band, Tesla Cruise.
Yeah, and I would see Tesla years ago, like when Tommy first left the band, and they got the new guy Dave Root, and they put out a great cover CD. And the cool thing they did back then is they released, they had 2 volumes of the CD. Volume 1 you could go buy it like at Best Buy in the stores, but then if you wanted to get Volume 2, you'd have to go see the band live, and you get a free CD.
That's right. I remember that. I think that's a good marketing plan.
Yeah, and I went just not only because I wanted to see Tesla, but I thought, okay, I want to get that. I want to get Volume 2 of that CD, so I'm gonna spend my hard-earned money to go get a free CD and go see a great band.
All right, very cool.
Yeah. And so what are you doing currently? You said you're currently working on a new CD?
I'm working on actually a couple new CDs. I've got some things, Irons in the Fires with Craig Goldie, who's a former guitar player of Ronnie James Dio. He's going to be doing some stuff with us, and Frank is going to produce, and Frank produces all my music no matter what we do. So we have a full-blown album coming out before summer.
And will that be under the Grey Golden band name?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And I got to ask about that, Greg. Like, did you always do you consider yourself a solo artist, or because I know a lot of times it's hard coming up with a band name, or was that part of the reason? Well, it's just
no. I'll tell you to be honest. So I've been in all kinds of bands, many bands, so many bands, and I played guitar for a long time. I'll be honest. I'll give you my age. I'm 66. I played guitars on my 7th birthday, so I've been playing 50. What is it? 59 years, 60 years, pretty close.
Wow, you just shocked me because I got to tell you, looking at your photos like on Facebook, I never would have guessed you were that age. You look much younger in the pictures.
I stay in good shape.
I
don't smoke. I don't drink. And I've always stay active, and I've got more energy than most guys in their 20s and stuff, and think things clearly. But, okay, so the band name, so after being in so many different bands, I was in the Chuck Ruff group for a long time. Chuck
Ruff,
wow. And then, I formed a bunch of different bands, and guys would pass, or the singer would leave, or whatever, and we'd have merch, and we'd have a backdrop, we'd have the band name on it, photos, and promo photos, and T-shirts made, and I could probably fill a mini warehouse with stuff that I've got from bands that it's irrelevant because the bands aren't around anymore. So the commonality of all that is I'm always in all those bands, and so Frank Hannon and I got together, and this is maybe like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and he said, we're going to do this, it's going to be your name on the band.
Cool.
And so we've gone with it ever since. And so, I don't rule it like a dictator.
No.
Go through, but then when there's ultimate decisions to be made, you got to make the right decisions for the direction that you're heading, and sometimes it pays off to, there's got to be somebody, a captain in charge, and
makes sense.
I guess that's me. I'm the appointed captain.
And you're the one constant probably in the band. Now let me ask you, do you do any lead singing in the band, or are you just primarily the guitar player?
I used to sing in the Chuck Ruff group. I would do 40% of the singing stuff. And I was having thyroid tumors, which affected my voice, and I do backups and stuff. But I do a lot of guitar work, both rhythms and leads, and I just sort of concentrate on that. And and it's really, if you don't practice singing and playing at the same time, that's definitely a challenge to sing something totally different than what you're playing. Like, for instance, Dave Manichetti, I've never seen a guy that can play lead licks, riffs, and then come up with a melody that's totally different, like it's two different things. It's unbelievable. But it's a matter of practice. It's like driving a car.
Yeah.
You get your left foot for the brake, your right foot for the gas pedal. It's sort of, it's like that kind of thing. But, no, I used to do a lot of singing and stuff, but I just help with the arranging, and all the songs that we do, Frank approves pre-production and post-production and so forth, and then once we get them in the wheelhouse, then we have them on our set list.
Wow, now let me ask you, being that it's a great Golden Band, are you the primary songwriter, or does everybody contribute to the songwriting?
No, I've written all the songs, and Frank has helped me with a lot of that stuff as well. Words we'll rely on the singer to a certain extent, but most of the vocals are Frank and I, and all the tunes are myself.
Now, on that note, I got to ask, even though you got a different guy singing the lyrics for you, being that you're the main songwriter in the band, are you kind of very critical of like how the singer performs a tune, or tell him, hey, that's not how I wrote the tune, or do you kind of let him do his thing?
Once we kind of get the general melody down, I try to have the lead singer have his own interpretation of it to a certain degree. Keep within some sort of boundaries, but no, I've never had any problems with that at all.
Yeah, because oftentimes, for some people I know it's difficult. Like when you write a song, that you have your own maybe version of in your head of how you intended the song to come out, and maybe comes out differently.
No, I just give the latitude to the different guys, and sort of like we just, I'm pretty loose with that. We try to stay as it's recorded. Once we have, that's what I'm saying. Once we have the production and pre-production, then we try to stick to most of that to keep it like the leads pretty much the same. But again, I might do something a little bit different if I think of something that was improved. If you play a song 20 times and you record it, or 30 times, whatever, but then you're recording it and playing it for 4 years, you've played it 500 times. Sometimes it migrates into something a little better,
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now, let me ask you, since you're on Facebook and the internet and stuff, because like you said, you're a local guy there in Reno, so you play primarily there. But have you seen, since you've gone on the internet, and that you're getting more fans than just people locally?
We have a huge base, bro. Like when Facebook started, I think about 8 or 10 years ago, we invested that in all total of all my pages, which I have a lot of pages.
Yeah.
Bizarre Guitar, and I have a gun shop in Reno also. It's tied in with that.
Wow.
My wife does In the Vault, where she interviews a lot of the rock stars and a lot of the people coming through and so forth, and all their pages. We have about 475,000 followers.
Oh wow, that is
on Facebook. It's huge. It really is, and that's helped a lot in both my business of my store and the band.
And I bet like a lot of guys growing up, who doesn't dream of growing up and being a so-called rock star or playing in a band. But it's kind of interesting that you're a musician, but you really got your break, with selling instruments to other musicians, and that's kind of a cool thing because you're still staying in your so-called chosen profession of music, and then you get to meet guys like Frank Hannon, doing that, and then now you're at the point in life where you're also able to start recording your own music and getting it out there. That's got to be a cool thing.
It is. It's kind of all intertwined. But I started out, playing in bands and went on the road for 4 years before I opened my shop, and I was buying vintage guitars along the way.
Wow.
And I just when I came back, I formed. I was always in a band of some sort.
Yeah.
So even when I had the store all these years, I'd still be playing out on the weekends and performing and stuff. But up until the last 5 years, my main focus has been the store. And we still have. I got some great employees and stuff, but I'm very serious about the music. We have 90,000 fans on my band page. And
wow.
We have 4 or 5 other band pages that total probably. We have a couple 100,000 followers. I did a podcast about 4 months ago with Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was one of my friends.
Oh wow.
And that kind of went. You should, if you get a chance. It's kind of a long one. It's like an hour and a half or something. If you were cleaning the garage, turn it on, you'd enjoy it because it kind of gives the history of the store. But I didn't know that Stone Cold kind of started out as a rock bass player.
Wow. Yeah, who would have thought?
He shared a lot of my stuff, and I was honored, and it really kind of gave us a shot in the arm with his endorsement. And the reason why he got involved with me is he liked my first album so much that he wanted to write about it and wanted to come. He came to Reno to interview me for the podcast and stuff.
Wow, and and getting back to the store for a minute, I mean, you told me you've been doing it almost 40 years. That's
45 years.
45 years for anybody to be in any kind of business that many years. You're doing something right, and I think it's cool because a lot of musicians starting out, they have nothing to fall back on, and so even if you never really got the opportunity to put together a great golden band or do what you're doing now, you were pretty successful already in the music industry, and a lot of musicians coming up, they don't have anything to fall back on. So that's cool that 45 years later you still got that same store going.
It would be tough to make unlike Frank Hannon, who's the exception to that rule, but it would be hard to make a living, playing gigs. I mean, it's just there was a time and place in the 70s and 80s you could do that, but anymore it's pretty tough, and you've got to develop your craft. You've got to work. It's not a matter like back in the 60s and 70s you could play in gigs and we're going to have a gig, let's print up 300 flyers and put them on neighbors' cars or something. Yeah. You got to be on social media or you have no prayer. I don't think of doing anything.
No, definitely.
Like Tesla's page is like 700,000.
Yeah, well, let me ask you, because for a guy who does what you do, Greg, the numbers you're quoting me, that's pretty good little fan base you got going there. With that being said, have you given any thought? I mean, I know you have a guitar shop going and stuff, but have you given any thought to maybe taking the band on the road and doing shows outside of your local area?
Well, yes, we have, and we're interested in that. Last year, 2017, we opened up for LA Guns, Sebastian Bach, Tesla, Y&T multiple times, Great White, 38 Special, Gary Hoey, Frank Hannon.
Wow.
Puddle of Mud, Eddie Money. So we kind of pick and choose the places that we're playing and the venues that we do.
Oh, makes sense. Yeah.
And so, if we were going on the road, we'd have to get a trailer because you'd be doing your own back line.
Yeah.
And they provide PA. So we just sort of, we never really got down that avenue because of that. We've been kind of, I have a good position and we know a lot of people and I have a lot of friends, and so we kind of pick and choose the gigs we want to do. But that still doesn't preclude us from doing something in other areas for sure. That would be great. I would love to do that. Yeah,
if you're able to kind of pick and choose, that's cool too. But even out here in LA where I'm from, especially a lot of big Hollywood clubs, it's sad. They have what's called paid to play. Oftentimes you go see even like a tribute band, and they gotta kind of guarantee the club owner, okay, well, tell them, okay, here's like 500 tickets. You give these to all your friends, and if you can pack the house and you can come back and play.
And see, that's the reason why we don't do that, because I won't do that, first of all.
Yeah.
I understand where they're coming from, because if we came
it's a business,
to LA, there might be a handful of people that knew us, but not like Sacramento where we're going to have 1,000, or Reno where we'd have 1,000, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Yeah, there's definitely a trade-off. The way I see that, facilitating us would be for us to back up, like open up for Tesla or Y&T in a
There you
different
go.
area. Now people see you, and there's a number of people that's going to see you. You're going to increase your fan base. Like we used to play Boise, Idaho, Burley, Idaho, Salt Lake City. I did a bunch of shows up there and stuff, and we were going up there every other weekend playing, and we were successful there.
Wow. Now, getting back to Tesla, since you're known those guys all these years, I got to ask because, for a good like maybe 9 or 10 year period, the band had broken up and they really weren't doing anything together. And then, so how surprised were you when you heard that Tesla was getting back together and they've been going stronger ever since?
Well, I knew Frank real well and stuff, so I kind of knew what was going on. But he had a band called Mood Dog Maine.
Yeah, I remember.
He was in a band called Kaleidoscope.
Okay.
And then he had, the Frank Hannon band. And I was really glad to see Tesla get back together again because they're an awesome band. And they have a history. I mean, they're just, they're top band. I mean,
yeah.
How many platinum and gold records they put out? A lot.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing about it is, it's one of those situations. Even if you listen to any of the Frank Hannon solo stuff, it's really great stuff, and it really, it's Frank from Tesla, but people don't buy for that reason. They buy because it's great music. He put out recently a great set. I think 2-volume cover CD.
Cover CDs. Yep, I went to his house and he was recording a lot of that.
And it's just great stuff. But ultimately, like I remember when they were really at their peak. They put out that live album and they released the song Science. And the interesting thing is, again, that's another case where their version of a song was much bigger than the original version of a song. But again, they really rocked it up and made the song their own. And again, you go and you listen to the original version, it sounds nothing like the Tesla version, but that's what doing a cover is all about, kind of tipping your hat to the original artist.
Plus, Frank and Tesla, I think that they were one of the. I mean, there's certainly other people that have done this, but
yeah.
I mean, they sort of bridged acoustic guitar and electric guitar together.
Yeah, they were right there. When that Unplugged thing was taken off. I mean,
yep.
That album they put out.
Look at the video for Signs.
Yeah.
Example.
Yeah. But yeah, they're just a great band. I'm glad they're back together, still doing it, because Tesla's what I was getting ready to say. Tesla's an example of like. As great music Frank Hannon puts out on his own, when those 5 guys get together, it's almost like the Beatles. It's magic, They're better together than they are apart.
I talked to Frank. Let's see, today is Saturday, and so Friday he was in Minnesota, Chicago area, where it was like 30 below zero. So they were playing there and working on stuff. So
wow.
They're traveling for a while. They'll be out for probably a month.
And so, do you ever get a chance, just as their friend, to go out on the road with them and hang out, or is it pretty much?
I would be welcomed at any of their shows or anything, but I'm using. For instance, I have practice tonight. We're playing a little private party tomorrow.
Oh, cool!
And I'm working in the store during the day, and so I have my studio right down in the basement. I have a full basement at Bizarre Guitar. It's 18,000 square feet, and I have a museum downstairs. But I have my man cave where it just sounds amazing. We go in and plug one chord in, and boom, we're set up and played. So we rehearse a lot. We have a lot of times open rehearsal. If you came or a friend came or something, we would have you downstairs, have a drink, and you can listen to the band practice. We practice a lot.
Now, is that studio just kind of for your purposes?
Yeah, it's just for me.
Oh, okay.
Or Frank, anytime Frank comes through.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Have you ever thought about like allowing other musicians or other bands come in and maybe that you wanted to produce or something?
Oh no, see, I'm just not really into that. Most of our stuff it's not set up so much for a studio recording as it is to practice live and record and set up. It's just really sounds amazing though. It's dead in there, and I've spent a bunch of time with different. Curtains that are sound curtains, and rubber carpets and all kinds of stuff.
Well, Greg, I want to take time to thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview you today. Originally when I contacted you, it was just a kind of interview about Ronnie Montrose and playing the concert last week, and find out a little bit more about who you are, and we did all that. And I really want to thank you because. I really want to ask you to let's please keep in touch, and when you get ready to drop your next album, please feel free to reach out to me, or anytime you want to do another interview. I'd be more than happy to help spread the word and about whatever you got to promote. Okay.
I really appreciate that, and I'd like to send you a couple of my records and stuff. Can you text me when we're done here your your mailing address?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that on. I'll do that through your Facebook.